what is dissociative identity disorder? The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual define it as the presence of two or more distinct identities that take concurrent control over someone's behavior. Yet there's another definition I come across that I find to be even more true, and that is the natural response to an unnatural occurrence. The natural response to an unnatural occurrence. Dissociation is just a defense mechanism, not unlike denial or rationalization. And we as humans, we all use defense mechanisms. Why? To protect. From what? Real or perceived threat. It's usually our way of trying to manage or control an overwhelming feeling or a threatening event in our lives. It usually takes the form of anxiety, sometimes grief. Now, dissociation is considered a primary defense structure, and that is because it develops during the preverbal stage of human development. For example, a child who's undergoing an overwhelming experience where they don't have the verbal or mental capacities to comprehend what's taking place. They can utilize dissociation in this instance to help them through the threat. And then they can continue utilizing it throughout adulthood. But if you don't use it by the age of 5 or 6, you'll never be able to utilize dissociation in the form of what I'm going to talk about. In this sense, dissociation is adaptation. And we're thinking, this is a good thing. It's really good for a child to be able to completely forget an overwhelming feeling and still be able to go on and enjoy other great things about life, like popsicle sticks and Saturday morning cartoons. But when an adult finds themselves driving down an unknown highway in Texas when they live in Missouri and they have no idea how they got there, that's when dissociation becomes maladaptive. In this story, it was something I heard in the counseling room, and there's many more like it. So what is taking place during this phenomenon? I won't be able to answer that, but I'm hoping that my study today will maybe shed some light on the answer to this. I want to let you know that this study that I'm presenting you today is the first fMRI study, a case study, that looks at what is happening in the brain during the exact moments that someone with clinically diagnosed dissociative identity disorder, what is happening in their brain at the moment they switch between their alter identities. Now, I know there's limitations to single subject case studies, but research has shown time and again how fruitful these studies can be. So what I'm going to present to you is what this study focuses on is what areas in the brain are activated while someone with DID switches between internal alter identities. Now, what do I mean by internal alter identities? I'd like to use a case study from my graduate experience to explain. I met a woman who took 2 counseling sessions going over all of her known identities with me. And at the time, there were 39. And they range from a 20-year-old male soldier who was there to protect, to an African-American preacher who would pace and pray, casting out oppressive spirits in my counseling room, all the way to an Asian dancer who loved to dance but didn't talk much. And she had a little child, a little girl inside, who would love to make arts and crafts, even giving me some sometimes. And she giggled a whole lot. So what I'm hoping that you're getting is this idea of what I mean by internal altered states is that it means that they take on their own personality, their own behaviors, their speech patterns are even different. Some even have accents. With that in mind, let me introduce you to our research subjects. Impersonally referred to as RV in our background article, I'd like to call her Rose, a middle-aged woman with DID, and her 4 to 6 year old child alter, Violet. Sometimes you're going to hear me in this presentation use the terms RV. Please know that I'm referencing Rose and Violet together. Now the method. The brain scan images were generated from this 3 Tesla MR scanner with RV's psychotherapist of over 20 years present as a therapeutic supportive role. Pre-processing and statistical analysis was gathered through intricate software programs like BET and McFlirt. The goal. The goal was to isolate brain images from RV at the very moment that they would switch. Now this took a great deal of creativity to capture these brain scan images, and something that the researchers collaborated with RV over. Now they came up with this background image that we know as Aurora from our Apple Macintosh computers. This was the no action image that RV used. The action images, this is rose to violet, violet to rose. This is the prompts that they wanted her to switch in this order. And when the switch was completed, they used this prompt for RV to press a button to let them know that switch was completed, and they would take the brain scan image at that very moment. Now there was a sequence of these screens, and the point of this was to have something that was methodical, something that RV became very comfortable with. And the whole point was that RV knew that a task was coming, when it was coming, but not know what the task was until the final prompt. The results. So this study was done on 2 different days, spanning months apart, and it generated very similar results, and so the researchers combined the data. So what we're going to see are brain scan images from both of those days put together. The most striking non-cortical find was found in consistent bilateral activation in the nucleus accumbens, as we see here in these red dots. Now, we may be familiar with the nucleus accumbens in reference to addictions, as it is central to our brain's circuit as far as our reward circuit, or the pleasure pathway, so to speak. This is the area of the brain where serotonin and dopamine are released. And this activation is very consistent with the idea that DID develops as an escape from pain, consequently having reinforcing features or reward value. The other activations, there were many other activations that we can see here in the motor cortex. And right up here, the bilateral activations, with also a deactivation in the visual cortex. This is usually due to the fact that when people are switching between alter identities, it typically looks like this. Just a blink of the eyes and a tightening of facial features. So in conclusion, our study was with Rose and Violet, a woman with alter identities who was far enough along their healing journey where they had control over switching between the two. And this enabled researchers to capture these brain scan images during their switch. And the results found a consistent activation in the brain that is associated with reward. Now for further study, I highly agree with the researchers. Let's grab more subjects to compare and contrast today's findings. But then also, I propose a longitudinal study with DID patients over their process of healing. What would happen if we not only garnered scans of their brain when they're switching, but how about when their alter identities are actually engaged? Would we then see different areas of the brain activated? So I just want to thank you for being here today.